Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, here today, continuing our journey on firearms ownership, and today we're talking about trigger control. Words mean things. It's important we're on the same page with respect to things that are going on in our trigger control. So when we come in to press the trigger back, we have pre-travel. Pre-travel is anything up to the point of where it actually breaks. People call it finding the wall or slack. It's all pre-travel. And so we have pre-travel up to the point where it breaks. Where it breaks is when your pistol or rifle fires, whether it's sear, striker, whatever it may be. And so we have pre-travel, and then we had it break, and then there was a little bit of movement, broke it about right there, and a tiny bit movement right there, which is over travel. At that point, our pistol or rifle would cycle, and then as the trigger comes back out, we feel and hear it. That is reset. So again, we have pre-travel, break, tiny bit of over travel, and then we have reset. One thing I will mention as we move through this, especially as new shooters, when you go to fire and you end up coming through, you get rid of your pre-travel, depending on what type of firearm you have, and you actually get it to where it breaks and fires. You want to keep that trigger pinned to the rear. It will help you self-diagnose, especially as you get into dry fire. As we get into trigger control, there are a couple considerations. One, biomechanics. As much as we want to be able to just press this trigger straight to the rear, we can't. As we begin to do that, our finger basically moves kind of in an arc. It's a limitation, we just have to be aware of it. It is a thing. And that gets into where do we want on this trigger, where do we want our finger to make contact? Do we want it right here at the tip, kind of in the middle of this pad, in between this first knuckle, maybe on this pad? The answer is grip. Grip is going to dictate. So depending on what you're shooting, you have different dimensions, whether it's this dimension right here or this dimension right here. That will dictate how you can actually grip your pistol or rifle. By way of example, if you have like a 45 ACP or 10 millimeter Glock, it's like holding a 2x4. It is what it is. And so if you said, hey, you have to use this part of your finger, whatever part, may not be realistic. People have different size hands. So the most important thing right here is going to be establishing your grip, which I touched on in another video. Once we establish a really good grip, wherever our finger falls on that trigger, it's going to be where we want our finger on that trigger. When it comes to trigger control with striker-fired pistols, whether it is something like this, SIG P365XL, any of the P320 series, all of your Glocks, Smith & Wesson M&Ps, all striker-fired pistols. When it comes to those pistols, we're going to establish that really good grip. We're going to present out, get our sight alignment, sight picture. Then we are going to come in, and as we press the trigger straight to the rear, maintaining sight alignment, sight picture, we are going to go through whatever pre-travel till we get that break. We're then going to keep it pinned to the rear. The pistol or rifle would cycle, at which point we are going to get a second sight picture. Again, sights aligned, sights where we want them on the target, at which point we are going to consciously and deliberately go ahead, let the trigger out till we feel it reset, and then let it all the way back out. Seems really long and tedious, but it will pay dividends in the end. Again, with striker-fired pistols, sight alignment, sight picture, we're going to take up all of that pre-travel, maintaining our sight alignment and sight picture until it breaks, keeping that trigger pinned to the rear. And then at that point, we're going to, after we get that second sight picture, we're going to go ahead and let the trigger out until we feel it reset, then all the way out. What if we don't have a striker-fired pistol? This right here is double action, single action. With respect to the double action portion, that first trigger pull, whether it is this or a revolver, this being a Smith & Wesson 915, There are certain pistols that are double action only or double action single action. So for double action, this first trigger pull is going to be long. There is not going to be any pre-travel. It is all going to be the trigger pull, which is going to actually manually move the hammer on this. So for this, I don't have any pre-travel. Once I establish my grip, I come in, I have my sight alignment, sight picture, and when I decide I'm going to shoot, I'm pulling all the way through till I fire, maintaining that sight picture, sight alignment, and at that point it would fire. It would then cycle, and this pistol, not being double action only, is double action, single action. I'm still going to have that reset right there. I can feel it, it's audible, at which point I can go ahead and let my finger all the way out. That next shot would be single action. But going back to the double action, just decocked it, establishing that grip, sight alignment, sight picture. I decide I'm going to shoot. I'm going to press all the way through on that trigger until it fires. Tiny bit of over travel. It would then cycle, at which point I can feel and hear that audible reset come all the way out. Something that may help is if you're shooting double action, whether it's double action only or double action single action, that first shot, think about pulling this trigger into the frame. Once we make that decision, we have good sight alignment, sight picture, all the way through till you break that shot. If you have something that is double action, single action, then we get into that single action shot. Or for that matter, you may have a pistol that is single action only, in which case, little nuance differences. When it comes to single action pistols, whether it is like a 1911 or your double action, single action, it's gonna be your trigger press, trigger control, it's gonna be a little closer to striker fired. So you're gonna have very little, if any, pre-travel, and usually a very clean, crisp break with often almost no over travel. You will have then a very distinct, albeit light, reset, and you're right back at it. Again, single action, almost no pre-travel, your break, usually almost no over travel, and again, keep it pinned, maintaining our grip, getting that second sight picture, sight alignment, coming out, and we have our reset, and moving on through it. When it comes to rifle triggers, we have two different types, one of which being your single stage, to include your mil-spec triggers. And your single stage rifle trigger, it's gonna be similar to your single stage pistol trigger, except usually probably won't be as clean of a break, and you might have more pre-travel and more over travel. Same principles though, we're gonna go ahead, establish our grip, sight alignment, sight picture, and when we come in, we decide to make that shot, we are going to press straight back, take up whatever pre-travel there is, until we get to the point where it breaks, at which point weapon will cycle. We're going to keep it pinned to the rear like we always do. Get another sight picture, sight alignment, sight picture, at which point as we let it out, we'll feel it reset. And we'll come all the way off the trigger. If we decide we're going to take another shot, we're going to press through, getting rid of whatever little bit of pre-travel there is until it breaks. Pin to the rear. Weapon cycles, another sight picture, and come back out, and we feel it reset. This right here being a single stage rifle trigger. And lastly, we have two stage rifle triggers, usually a relatively heavy first stage, and we press through that to a pretty distinct wall, at which point usually a really clean break with a lighter weight. So by way of example, this right here is a Geisley Tricon trigger, and the first stage is about 3 pounds, and then that second stage where it actually breaks is about 1.5 pounds. Same thing, going to establish grip, bring it into your shoulder, sight alignment, sight picture, all of that, and we are going to press through that first stage, and then we were at that wall, and then it breaks. Weapon cycles, get another sight picture, sight alignment, still pinned to the rear, and we let it out. Very clean, distinct reset, at which point we can then, if we choose to, press back. We take up that first stage, about 3 pounds, at the wall, and it breaks, about 1.5 pounds. Weapon cycles, another sight picture, good sight alignment, conscious decision not to shoot, and we let the trigger come forward, we feel it reset, all the way off, back on safe. With shooting a 2-stage rifle trigger, to get the most out of it, we ideally want to get that sight picture, good sight alignment, and take up that first stage, very distinct wall right there, at which point refine that sight picture before actually breaking that shot. That right there wraps up this video on trigger control, looking at some different types of triggers for pistols as well as your 2 different rifle triggers. Be sure to join us as we continue the journey of firearms ownership, and as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.